We're back with another political show. Spain's foreign policy is increasingly becoming multifaceted and multipolar. This is the story for this afternoon with Mustafa with me today. My name is Afolabi. Welcome to the show.
Okay, I'm going to argue with you that Spain looks like it's moving towards multipolarism and anything, but it's actually schizophrenic. And the relationship that Spain has towards Palestine and against the Iran war is very noble. They say they don't want to deal with Israel. They won't put arms towards Israel. But it doesn't matter because even if you don't let the US use your bases uh to attack Iran, or if you don't let do business with Israel, even though they still do business with Israel, it doesn't hurt America's agenda because they have Israel to do things to Palestine. They have UAE to use as basis. So I'm going to argue that the president of Spain is a two-faced who's not really a leftist. He claims to be anti-war, and they say no guerra, which means no wars anywhere. Okay, so he speaks out against what's going on in Palestine, speaks out against the Iran war, but meanwhile he's pledging billions to Ukraine. He's saying that he's doing it because they believe in no more wars and Russia's bullying Ukraine. We're not going to argue as to whether that's a valid argument as to whether Russia is right or wrong, but to give $1 billion to Ukraine and then to start and spend more money on Spain's military industry, which is, along with Ukraine, making drones to fight wars. To me, that's not a socialist agenda. It's not what the far left would stand for because it's trying to solve the problem of war by creating weapons to keep wars going rather than focusing on trying to find a diplomatic solution towards what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. And by giving money to Ukraine and pushing this war, he's hurting the same multipolar mechanism he says he's joining in. He says, oh, we go to China, we're open to BRICS. But meanwhile, you're supporting weapons that are going to be and you're not just but you're creating weapons, an industry that are going to be used against Russia. He'll say again that they have to do that as a deterrence for people to do war. But my argument, once again, is that diplomacy is the only deterrent. Early in the war, Putin was supposed to meet with Zelensky to come up with an agreement, a ceasefire, and end the war. Boris Johnson came there and shut it down. So what I'm saying is that Europe has not even tried to exhaust the limits of peace and negotiation with Russia. They just keep antagonizing Russia under the name of helping Ukraine. But the question we ask is, are they doing it? Are they helping Ukraine by pumping money to Ukraine to continue fighting a losing war, or would it be better to sit down with Ukraine and Russia and come up with a treaty? They came up with a Minsk treaty 2014. USA, Germany, and EU worked an agreement between Russia and Ukraine. This was before this was when the first tension started. And later on, they bragged about that treaty was just to buy time to build weapons again for Europe. So it's clear that Europe does not intend to have any type of mediation between Russia and Ukraine. Their goal is just to use Ukraine as a springboard to try to weaken Russia, using an Russophobic view that Russia is going to take all over all of Europe. I'm going to end with one thing which is related. When you look at what happens in Germany, the U.S. destroyed the Nord Stream pipes, which give cheap gas and oil to to Germany. So it's clear what's going on. Through Ukraine as a proxy, the United States is keeping Europe dependent on it for gas. Spain gets a lot of its gas from liquid gas from the U.S. and keep them as a vassal, and also use them in part of their pronged war against multipolarism, which is against Iran, China, and Russia. All of these wars going on in Ukraine and Iran, choking of oil, is an attempt to choke China. So what I'm going back to Sanchez is that Sanchez claims to be such a, the big hippie leftist socialist, but what he really is he's a neoliberal cloaked as a socialist. The side of the party does not agree with him. Having a military industry, it's not like you're giving weapons to Ukraine to fight Russia. They're actually creating these weapons and making profit during a time where Spain's agriculture and domestic situation is dire, just like it is in much of Europe, and you can afford to spend 34 billion on war. To me, it doesn't make sense, and I'm just going to say he's not a socialist at all. He's not a bad person, but his views are contradictory. If you're not for war, you shouldn't be creating weapons. You should be trying to mediate peace. Go ahead. What do you think, Afolabi?
You're absolutely right. I mean, the guy is like a chameleon. You're right to say he's two-faced, basically. And in my own opinion, I think you cannot even call him neutral. selectively aligned.
Yeah.
It's selective alignment. He's fully embedded in the Western policy on Russia and Ukraine. When it goes to the Middle East and Global South, his posture is critical, sometimes independent. He's trying to balance and act, but sometimes it comes out as being hypocritical because, as you said, he is supporting peace. If he's mediating for peace, he won't be funding for war. Basically, I
Yes.
think he wants
He
to
said he
preserve
doesn't want war.
wants to preserve the EU NATO credibility in Europe, basically. And I think he wants to keep diplomatic and economic access to BRICS aligned and global South countries. So how do you do that? That's a very delicate balancing act because those interests are polar opposites. And then you
Yeah.
look at the strong Ukrainian support, you know, and all these things. So basically, Spain is not neutral. They're just controlled alignment actor, so to speak, a controlled alignment actor, deeply committed
They're
in
still a
Russia
vassal of the
and
U.S. because
security issues.
they're a vassal of the U.S. and of Germany because the U.S. and Germany and France are the ones pushing this armament against Russia. And I can tell you, this armament against Russia is not going to hurt Russia. What it's going to do is it's going to drain Europe's economy and take away their focus from their privates, from their public sector, from social programs and everything else, and make them go broke, printing money, trying to continue the Ukraine war, which is a losing war. The only thing that the Ukraine war is doing bad for Russia is it's slowing down. They're using drones to attack Russian or oil and gas refineries. Okay, so what it's doing is it's slowing down Russians' exports of gas. That's about it. But Russia's economy is still growing by 2%. Europe is going to go to a recession. And now, in the middle of a war in Iran, rather than all of Europe to come as one stance and try to stop a war, which is going to destroy Europe, going to destroy Asia, and going to destroy sub-Saharan Africa because of choking of gas, oil, and also fertilizer. Rather than that, he's focused on pledging $1 billion to continue fighting a war, which is actually making the whole global situation worse. So I just think that Sanchez is not really a great leader, and all of his is just poetic when he says, "Oh, we stand with Palestine and everything else." They're not doing anything concrete. Nobody in Europe has stood up to say, "Let's put real sanctions on Israel," because, and we know they all say it's a genocide, but they don't put sanctions on them. But when Iran does something or Russia does something, they're willing to break their backs and go broke to stop them. So I stand with Spain because Spain has a large population of immigrants. I stand with them because the average Spanish person does have a socialist, sort of left-leaning, and they also have conservatives, but they tend to be a country that really doesn't like war. They went through fascism, so they know what it is. But I just think they need to take a close look at Sanchez because Sanchez is sort of like an Obama. He's a chameleon who's just
Yeah,
trying to
so
reflect to you what he wants. Once again, Europe needs to be stopping what's going on in Lebanon and Palestine through hard sanctions on Israel. If you don't take hard sanctions on Israel, it means you're just pretending to be humane. What are your last thoughts, Afolabi, that we get out?
yeah, you're absolutely right. And even this perceived pragmatic engagement with Iran, it has to be taken with a pinch of salt because they don't have any unique privileges geopolitically with Iran in terms of access to the Strait of Hormuz. Whatever it is they're being granted there is just governed under international navigation norms, not some kind of bilateral concession, really.
Yeah.
And if you look at the European states, including Spain, uh, they don't engage Iran indirectly via the EU frameworks on energy sanctions and coordinations. So basically, what is key here is that whatever privileges they're enjoying now, it's basically under an existing framework, not that they have some special relationship with Iran, basically.
Yeah.
So like you
I
said,
know they want to. They're open to being open with trade with Spain. They're basically not Spain with China. They're kissing that China's ass because everybody
yeah,
knows
basically that's what they're doing. They're kissing China's
China's the next
ass.
hegemon,
Yeah,
not the next hegemon, but China's is the gatekeeper for the world economy now.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
this,
all right.
and this kind of stance is a very, very dangerous one. You have to
Oh yeah, this
declare
Ukraine thing.
for something, really. Otherwise, you fall for everything.
And let me end with this. These drones that they're making, this military industry they're making, is not actually to fight Russia. It's to make money for their corporate executives and keep a war going on that Russia's winning. They're actually weakening Europe, and Spain is weakening itself because Spain is in no position right now to have a military industry. at all. They're in no position. They'll say it's for their safety, but no, it's not for your safety. All right, take us out, Falabi. Thank you.
Okay, it's been another brilliant political show. We have been discussing Spain's perceived slant towards multipolar and multifaceted foreign policy. And I've been discussing with Mustafa Jinodo. I'm still Afolabi. We're back again with some other global interesting political stories. Bye for now.
Yeah, I won't see you till tomorrow, but I'm sure I'll be texting you funny jokes on WhatsApp.
Oh,
All right.
sure. Absolutely. Nice
All
one.
right, bye. Nice
Yeah.
one. Okay.